call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Adjustments to the agenda. We have on here a discussion about the Vermont School Boards Association. They are going to join us tonight, so we're going to just pick that up when they arrive. I told them about 6:15, 6:20 would probably be a good time for us to work them in, and they're going to join us here in the room. So when they get here, we'll work them into our meeting and do that part. Does that work for everyone? Any other adjustments? All right. Approve the minutes of Tuesday, March 25th.
So moved.
Is there any discussion on the minutes? If none, so moved. Board correspondence communications. Did you email everybody this?
Just
So one correspondence.
Kathy, sorry to interrupt. There's a problem with the recording, and the reason I'm speaking is, in order for me to change that, it's going to kick somebody out of the meeting, specifically Caitlin Norton. I wanted to announce that before doing it.
So we have to vote somebody off the island?
Sometimes it does weird things.
Okay, and Caitlin can rejoin. Okay, all right. So the VSBA did send a letter. It's in an email that I got just before the meeting that they're going to share with us when they get here tonight. If people want to have an opportunity to take a look at it before they arrive, but they did send a letter, and Jamie has emailed it to everybody. So that's what I have for board correspondence. Is there any public comment? Do we have any public on?
We just kicked her off.
See how we roll. Well, when she joins back on again, we can ask.
Does anyone know Caitlin so we could reach out to her?
She's from Stratford. She's on the preschool board. You know her, Jamie.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm emailing her right now to tell her she needed to get kicked out because of the recording, but that she can join again.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you,
And
Eric.
we can ask her when she comes back on if she has any comments or questions, and we can let her listen then. So while we're waiting to see Caitlin joins back up, Jamie, do you want to go?
Sure. So you have my written report. The only thing I would add to this report at this time is that I have met with the Vermont Principals Association Executive Director, Jay Nichols, to share some concerns that I've had in regards to the VPA's outreach to membership around H454, and specifically around. My feeling is a little bit that the VPA, VSA, VSBA saying support H454, but not specifying what that support may mean to all schools. And so I shared that concern with the VPA. I also had a meeting last Thursday with the VSA Executive Director, the VSA President, and the Winooski Valley Trustee, where I thought we had a positive meeting. In regards to, I felt like it was a meeting that I felt like at least my concerns as a superintendent of a supervisory union, and not feeling like there's been any testimony specific to keeping the supervisory union as a viable structure for how schools can work interdependently together, but also provides for local voice. And, I think encourages democracy because it's not one board spread out over a large geographical area in multiple districts. It's an SU board that supports multiple districts via the SU structure. So I shared that. I thought that was well received. And I felt that our concerns were heard in regards to the VSA. And in addition to those things, what I wanted to add to you is that I am going to be testifying tomorrow afternoon in Senate Ed. with a member of the Alliance, but also with representatives of the VSBA, VSA, Vermont NEA, and VPA, possibly, in response to concerns that we may have around some of the provisions provided via H454.
What time?
Jamie, what time does that testimony start?
So that testimony is for about 2 hours. It's going to start at 1:30, but representatives from each one of those organizations are going to be testifying. I don't know what that order is going to be, but it'll start at 1:30. And
Thank you.
Senate Ed, and they were very clear that, and Bill, I was really appreciative of you being there as a friendly face the last time I testified, but they weren't looking, the room's going to be pretty full. So they didn't want guests there, that you're welcome to join virtually.
Oh,
But they're worried about the size of the room and that many folks testifying over that period of time. And I can say that room's quite tight, so I can appreciate that.
Gee, they don't have any other rooms that are larger.
That's their committee room. So that's a good thing. We can get into more of that underneath the H454 under that discussion item later in the meeting. And I'll take any questions folks might have about my written plan. One of the other things I'll just add is we had a really good SU admin team today meeting where I feel really good about a roadmap that we were able to put out around the admin team and working with all of our different constituents due to the nature of specific areas that we'll be focusing on. One of them is the revisions to our strategic plan. So some of the admin team will be joining me as well as teachers. We'll reach out to the community. Mary Shaw, our community school coordinator, will be part of that too. So we are starting that process, progress monitoring our strategic plan and working on revisions to that plan. My hope is to get you all out a draft in July that you'll be able to see and start to comment on, and we'll continue that discussion in August. After we get out of our July recess. The other areas we're going to be looking at is progress monitoring our communications and outreach plan. We're going to, again, one of the groups after they work on that progress monitoring, which we'll report out to you at your June full board meeting, is there's some additional tweaks we want to make to our supervision and evaluation plan within our Danielson framework. We have some positions that are fairly specialized that I don't feel like our rubrics necessarily address as well as they could. As an example, some of our student support coordinators, and trying to make certain we really have rubrics that align to those job descriptions. And so, no, there's a group working on that. There's a group working on professional development areas of focus across the supervisory union for next year. And there is, what am I missing on that?
Mentoring.
Thank you. A group working specific on continuing to tweak and revise our teacher mentor mentee program to continue to, just based on feedback we've received, continue to strengthen that approach and process. As you know, I've spoke to, I think that is critical in regards to us being able to retain teachers across the supervisory union. We want to make certain they're well supported. So we're going to have a group working specifically on that too, and gathering feedback from our current mentors and mentees, of course, as part of that process. Any questions?
Thank you. Any questions, Stacy?
I don't have a question, but I did want to say again, Jamie, thank you so much for all the advocacy this session. It's well above and beyond, I think, what you should expect from anybody who already has a full-time job. And like, I just can't tell you how much it's appreciated to have somebody like showing up every day and keeping an eye on things.
Ditto.
Yeah, second that, third that, fourth that.
Fifth that.
Thanks. Thanks for all your support too. I meant that in my opening paragraph of the written report. Yeah, and then we can move up to point two.
Honda, she's not gonna go.
Thank you. And you have my report. The first page there just gives some updates on things that have been going on with regard to state testing, state and federal grants, which is an exciting place to be working these days. Some of the summer planning that we're doing, And then a little bit more of attention to this Everyday Counts grant, which you've heard a little bit, I think, about previously, but really helps us focus on our goal, which we've had for a couple of years, but have really started to focus more intently on in this past year around chronic absenteeism, and how do we ensure that more of our students are getting high quality learning as many days as possible. And so the next 3 pages give you snapshots of what chronic absenteeism or attendance, depending on which way you want to think about it, data looks like in our EduClimber platform. That's our data warehouse and dashboard that we're using with more and more frequency as more and more data gets in there. And different ways that we are just looking at the data. So it just gives you a snap, just a look into that. The first page there with the 2 kind of line graphs look at data across our SU by day of the week, and also then by month, just to give an idea. So we looked at this a lot when we were developing our calendar for next year to think about, do we keep our early release days on Fridays? Our attendance does seem to go down on Fridays. How much of a factor is that? But then a lot of, there are a lot of other pieces that come in about how people, families have arranged their schedules to adjust to Fridays, and making a shift on that can be hard. So these are the kind of things that we looked at. Months, we also talk a lot about the winter months. We have a lot of investment of time and energy that goes into winter wellness and the programs that we use to get our kids doing a lot of active things in the winter, and we are seeing that. I think that is increasing attendance during those winter months, but we still do certainly see February is our lowest attendance month across the year so far. So that's just one look there. You have to always be cognizant of what the y-axis looks like and how much they're shifting that. Things that can look like really steep inclines and deep declines are not actually as steep as they look. They just sort of can stretch that y-axis out a little and make it look really dramatic. We're still attacking it, but it's maybe not as dramatic as it sometimes looks. The next page is just another way that we're looking at things. And this was just an example. All the students have been anonymized, so you can't tell who they are, which is also a nice feature because you can look at data in ways like this, but not know who we're talking about. This is looking at our most chronically absent kids in the elementary or kindergarten through 6th grade who took the DIBELS assessment, which is our foundational literacy, in the September and then in January. And you can see maybe a little bit of connection between low attendance and not a lot of growth between September and January. You can also see exceptions to that, right? There are kids who have low attendance and are doing just fine on foundational literacy. So it's not always one story, but again, it's some of the ways that we're looking at the data to better understand how to support all of our kids with their growth. And then the last page is just sort of the flip side of that same group of students, and the kids with the highest level of attendance and sort of what their foundational literacy scores look like on this one measure between September and January. So just a way to give you a little bit more education of how we're looking at data and thinking about it and the kind of things that we're using to spark conversations around what sort of programs we want to be using, how do we want to organize our teachers, our students, and our work ahead.
Do the colors have meaning?
They do. Thank you. I feel like I look at this all the time and I don't think so good. So, so traditionally red has been well below expectations. Yellow is considered below expectations or nearing expectations. I have to double check myself here. Green is meeting expectations, and blue, oops, I had that backwards, is well above. We have 2 different programs and they reverse blue and green.
Oh, of course.
So I think blue is meeting and green is exceeding.
Okay.
Any questions on either the data EduClimber or any of the other things that we're working on?
2 points. One is it's great to see using technology to get data drilled all the way down to the individual student that you can, we didn't see the individual students, but then you share that with the principals and the teachers and your whole support team about what this says, what it means, and what we're doing about it. And it's great that we've got that teamwork going. And it's really impressive. The second thing is, it was more of a question having to do with your comment that our Vermont CAP tests have been taken for the spring. And one is that we're not going to see the results of those until August. Secondly, your comment, which I should have known, but I wasn't aware of, that this is the measurement of all the state students and how we're doing in English language arts, math, and selected grades for science. But we still have a third of our, or 3 months of our academic year. So so I wanted you to clarify that we're being tested now on the expectations that our students are going to meet a performance level that's 3 months away.
Yeah, I mean, the testing window is over a month long. So when the tests open up, it's right when our second trimester closes. So that's 2/3 of the year through. We do have we do start some of the testing right then. And so I do think it really is getting 2/3 of the school year is sort of what they call the state summative. So the whole state is in the same situation, right? So we are all in the same area, but it is not necessarily a summative.
Yeah, I could see a comparison. The whole state is testing prematurely, and so we're all in the same boat there. And so we can compare ourselves with everybody else. But we also have specific goals that are tagged with the state assessment that isn't tied with other schools and districts and supervisory unions right here, and they're very ambitious. And my question is whether or not how to interpret the results, because this is the end of our 5th year of our strategic plan on those performance goals, and whether or not where we do have a measurement that's a steady thing every year, which is to track my progress or something, it's something like that should be the mechanism that truly tells us where we're at the end of the academic year. And it's more of a, I don't expect necessarily an answer, but
no, I appreciate.
I'm concerned about that.
I appreciate the question and the comment, and I think it's certainly something that we'll bring back to the strategic plan committee as well as we go to revise that. I think at this point, right, I think we want to report out what we've been measuring against for the last couple of years. Though we did have the state test change halfway through, so we also adjusted to that. But I think as the strategic plan group starts to develop, I think thinking about what are the measures that feel the most meaningful for our communities is certainly part of that conversation. So I appreciate you opening that up as a possibility to change that.
Thanks, Sandra. Anything else, guys? Thank you very much.
Hi. Hi, Annette Rhodes. I'm the Director of Special Services for the Supervisory Union, for those who it's their first time seeing me. You also have my reports. At the end of March, we just completed our series with the I team. So they come from UVM, and they've been working with our paraeducators in the whole supervisory union on ways to work with our most intensive students in classrooms and out of classrooms. So each session had a different focus. Some were on like assistive technology, like augmentative devices, like people call them talkers. So kids who don't have any language, how they speak. Some was on like different ways to modify and prep materials. It was a really great series, how to work with your related service providers, like your occupational therapists and your speech pathologists, and your classroom teachers and special educators as well. So that was a nice way to kind of kick off that series. And are currently now in talks with some building principals in our supervisory union to kind of keep the series going. But focusing on all the staff in the building as we all work together. So stay tuned on that. The big thing that I've been really focusing on is it's hiring season. Generally, February, March, and into April is really big hiring season in our department. And so I have more hires for you. For those of you who have been kind of with me through this year, it's been a roller coaster of a year with staff kind of coming in and going. So it's nice to have some what I feel is like really strong candidates. Some people actually coming back to the supervisory union who either went out to further their education or because of life circumstances left and now are coming back. We're so excited and had strong feelings about wanting to come back. So I'm excited for the list that you have here of new hires. So we have Kylie Edwards coming back. She was a special educator in our elementary alternative program, who's going to come back to Bethel Elementary. Chancellor Young right now has been dabbling with career and technology, and Randolph, she's going to come and join us as a special educator. Heidi Richards was a SAP counselor at our high school for a couple of years. She left and went and got her school psychology degree, so she's coming back as a school psychologist intern for us. And Tess Cafretti, she was an occupational therapist for us. Her husband had this great internship opportunity down south for a year. They went and did that. Now they're back. She reached out to me and said, hey, is my job still open? Or do you need an occupational therapist? I love it in your supervisory union. So I said, absolutely, let's come back. So she's already locked in. We've got her for next year. And I've only had one resignation for at the end of the year. So when school ends in June, Pam Tower, a special educator, just won't be returning. So far, I'm really, really excited about the group of professionals coming in the fall. Yeah. Any questions? Yeah, super excited. I know I had Lindsay on my list last month, so super excited. It's great.
Will you still be visiting with us each month at our meetings?
Oh,
We'll miss you.
I can swing in if you want.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much. Tara, business manager report.
Good evening, everyone. You have my report. It outlines what's happening in the month of May in the business office, the reports that we have due this month, along with Rochester Stockbridge Unified District, Granville Hancock Unified District annual meetings on the 6th and 13th. And then the Wright River Unified District bond reconsideration vote is on May 20th. And then next month, I will be coming to you all for your tax anticipation notes for fiscal year 26. So I need to do all the prep work and get the information necessary for the cash flows to the bank for that. And then if there's any questions.
Questions for Tara, anyone? Thank you, Tara.
You're welcome.
And Ray.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Ray Ballou, Director of Technology for those guests this evening. So as I bring up my report and scroll back through it, I'd be happy to answer any questions from our virtual participants or here in the room about Alma, phishing, multi-factor authentication, our summer interns. I'm hoping we have an EC Fiber board member in the room that I can talk to. Or somebody who's a town rep, because there was a news article that kind of seemed concerning.
I'm a town rep, but can we talk about it offline?
Please.
Not because there's any information I can share, but precisely because there's a lot of information that I don't know.
Totally understand.
Yeah. But let's check in on that article and anything else going on. I'm not a hugely participatory town rep, largely because this board takes up too much of my time.
Fair enough. Thank you.
And policy committee update. We had our meeting right before this meeting. I showed up late, but we did move policy C21, F23, and C22
That's it.
forward for action. And that's something that we're going to talk on next month. Is there anything that anybody wants to share from our meeting to the group from any of those policies?
Eric, do you have any comment?
Eric, you're still allowed to comment even though you can no longer vote.
See, Eric, we didn't even prep them and they still want you to do the commenting.
Dustin?
So those two policies that came out of committee will start to be in districts, in front of districts this month for readings. They're just revisions. And then I think we'll have at least another 2, if not 3 policies coming out next month.
Hale, I did have some questions about the wellness policy, but I can reach out to you offline. I mean, I have gone through it. A lot of it is just, requests for clarification and just me delving into trying to understand. Like, for example, it's like there are informal support systems and movement breaks and such, but I don't want to, I know there's a lot to get through, so I don't want to tie up time delving into that now. But I can reach out offline with those.
And that policy has not been moved out of committee, Sana, either. We're going
Okay.
to talk about that again next month. So, but please share those thoughts so that we can capture them even prior.
Oh, okay.
You can email them to me and I'll get them out to the group.
All right, I will do that. Thank you so much.
And
please
feel
feel
free
free
to
to
reach out
come.
to any of us on the committee if you want to just talk offline.
Sana's on the committee.
Oh, so yeah, so if you want to talk offline, I'm more than happy to also.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You should come to policy committee meetings. They're the best.
Yes.
So I'm told.
Very exciting. All right. So we are up to our discussion items, and we have guests here tonight, so we're going to go through and do a quick introduction before we get started on our legislative update discussion.
Well, we need the 8.2, your ESBA membership.
Okay.
So I can see her.
Yeah, so you can see our- Okay. All right. So I'll let you guys introduce yourselves to the board, and then we'll go through and do a quick introduction to you. Sound good?
Okay, that sounds great. I'm Sue Saglowski. I'm the
Sue.
executive.
Can you
Oh, sorry.
come?
Oh, this way.
Nope. This
This way.
this is the camera.
Okay, I'm Sue Saglowski, and I am
See, look in the
the.
bottom corner, you'll
Yeah,
see
come
that you're
here.
not on.
Come here.
Look at this camera and just see. So that's me.
Yeah, you're.
Ah,
There you go, there you go.
Gotcha. All right. Sorry, everyone. I'm Sue
You know,
Saglowski.
Sue. Hi,
I'm the executive director for Vermont School Boards Association.
I'm Gio Honeyford, a Royalton resident.
I am Flora Diaz-Smith, the president of Vermont School Association. Nice to be here with you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sandra Cameron, Associate Executive Director with the Vermont School Boards Association.
And we have a couple of people online. Jim?
Yeah, Jim Salzgiver. I'm on the VSBA board. I'm also chair of the Bennington Rutland Supervisory Union.
And I am Neil Odell. I am one of the 2 Windsor area reps for the VSBA.
Great.
Is there any way they could sit at the table so that we could see them better?
Yeah,
I mean, we can definitely scoot down and
Do you want to move down there or move?
So they're closer to the.
It's better for them to see.
No, that's fine. I'll bring
Yeah,
it
you
down.
know, you guys don't need to see me. You can talk to me. I can be way up here in the corner.
Oh, yeah,
Okay, so board, we'll go through and I'll call each one of you. You guys can introduce yourselves as we go through. So Sarah?
I'm Sarah Root. I'm the chair of the Stratford board.
Sana?
Hi, I'm Sana. I'm one of the newer board members, and I'm on the policy committee.
Dustin?
You're muted, Dustin.
That's never happened before. Yeah, I'm a clerk on the Stratford board.
And Stacy?
Hi, my name's Stacy Dion. I'm a resident of Tunbridge. I'm on FBUD.
I gotta remember to say which Stacy. Stacy Peters?
Stacy Peters, chair of Granville Hancock Unified District Board.
Eric?
Eric Lopez, vice chair of the Stratford board.
Will Davis?
Hi, Will Davis. I'm the chair of the Sharon board.
Sylvia?
Sylvia Moore, clerk of the Sharon board.
Bill?
Bill Smith, clerk of the First Branch board.
Did I get everybody online? Okay. And then, do you want to start?
Amy Will, I'm the chair of Rochester Stockbridge.
Jamie Daniel, I'm on the board for Bethel.
Bill Edgerton, Rochester Stockbridge School. Nice to meet you.
Nancy Pajui, White River Unified District Chair.
Dave DeMay, White River Unified on Royalton.
Kathy Galuzzo, First Branch Unified District and Chair of the full board. Jamie?
Jim Perry, superintendent. I think I know everyone. I've not met Jim, but I've met them.
So you guys sent us a letter. We sent you a letter. You sent us a letter. So we've done lots of letter writing. We had a lot of concern with your support for H454. And more, you guys feel welcome to chime in, board members. But I guess that's where we're at. We feel like the rural community schools have been supporting us pretty strongly for the structure that we are, and want to get through this process whole. And we didn't feel like we had that support from the VSBA in supporting H454 is how I felt, and anybody else can speak how they felt. And we are glad that you came tonight. I value our relationship with the VSBA. We get a lot of information from you. We do our superintendent's evaluation with you. There's a lot of things that serve us well, but we didn't feel served well through the support of 454. Anyone else? Stacy?
I wanted to chime in and say that Michael Livingston, whom I think you all know from the Sharon board, gave me a call this afternoon, sending his deep regret that he couldn't come tonight. He had what he called a crisis conflict. He had a conflict that could absolutely not be rescheduled. But he did want me to deliver a message that he felt that your response on the 18th to our correspondence, he called it demeaning. He feels like in your response, it goes beyond supporting this bill. Like we all know that it's okay to disagree on things, but what we expect as your constituents is a certain amount of respect and deep listening and engagement, especially to the issues surrounding why we were so vocally opposed to this bill and have been writing you letters since February about this direction. And he was yapping at me while I was taking some notes. He also suggested that there seems to be a tenor that these small districts are the ones that are fiscally irresponsible. You did note, and Sue, I went back and watched your testimony and read your written testimony to Ways and Means at the end of March, where you specifically addressed the need for this bill to capture cost drivers, which we have been preaching and saying and talking about how we are a success story with respect to being able to manage responsibly. And all of that just kind of got ignored in our conversation. So he feels that we weren't listened to. We were in fact demeaned. And he asked me to deliver this because he knows that I share some of those feelings. So speaking for Michael, speaking for myself, I think Kathy is right. We were disappointed that you didn't listen to our concerns around H454, but regardless of whether or not you ultimately chose to support it, supporting it by going after your entire membership, urging them to support it is is a death knell to all of our small rural schools. And it is critical that way. So that's where I stand, and that's where our colleague from Sharon stands.
I also agree with what she was saying. I don't know if all of you are aware of how we've done such a great job in this district with mergers. We've closed, Whitcomb High got closed, Rochester High got closed. What other?
Chelsea.
And Chelsea got closed. And we've been very successful with our mergers. And as the governor has been saying that the school tax rate was going sky high, Royalton this year has a 5% decrease, and Bethel has about a 2% increase. That's pretty successful. Mm-hmm. And to mess with what we've had so much success with, and instead of including that as a success story, I'm not hearing that coming out of VSBA, that there have been districts that have already, I mean, we're the model of that, of a district that has managed to keep costs down by merging. The idea of going to a 4,000 student district, I can't even begin to imagine what that would look like and what that would do to our schools and our kids. Yeah. Anyway, that's my piece.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, hi. I want to talk about process. We need coherent, transparent process that we can work together as a team and get the best outcomes. And that's the other thing. Process without a good outcome is just wasted effort. I just spent a good afternoon listening to you at your February 12th meeting when you did spend a half an hour on discussing the Vermont School Superintendent Association's recommendations. And I read between the lines in your voice was that the Vermont School Board Association, you needed to take immediate action, okay, to be part of a player, and you were being requested by the chair of the House Education Committee. And so after your brief discussion of this, and I think a half an hour when you're talking about the stakes involved here, was quite brief, and I got a sense that your members of your board didn't have the time necessary, the time, or one person didn't even know it was in the 150-page packet. But you did make a decision, and the decision I thought was crafted in a way of getting that decision, which was, okay, of the 15 people in attendance, how many are thumbs up about moving ahead and supporting the Vermont Superintendents Association? Sideways where you want to be supportive, but you've got problems with some of the things that were being recommended. And then thumbs down for you don't like to, serious concerns. So the vote was 8, 6, and 1. So if you look at that vote, it was 8-7. But I got a sense that teamwork, let's move together. We need allies. That was what Neil said. We don't want the perfect to get in the way of a good, necessary action. But on that day, you had a choice. And it seemed like the choice was, this is close. There's still serious concerns. You could have sent something, and I don't know, I never read your letter, that says, or instructed Sue that we're generally supportive of the direction of making more efficiencies, higher quality performances, more of that sort, without getting into the weeds. But what happened, as far as what we heard, was that you supported not only the general effort of reform, but you talked about school sizes, class sizes, and basically jettisoning the opportunity of having supervisory unions, because the one thing was going to be one district, whether it's 2,000 students or 4,000 students. That's a decision based on a half an hour discussion, cutting off all the supervisory unions and the reasons, including us, that are doing a good job, I think was unfortunate. And just over a week after that meeting, your meeting on February 12th, and on February 21st, we sent you a letter explicitly telling you of our concerns. And what I thought was, I find disappointing to your current chair and the past chair, is we didn't see an outreach, serious outreach effort to engage, to connect. We're only one of a supervisory union, but we represent a portion of all the small rural district schools. They've got real concerns. You know those concerns. And what bothers us is, if you're going to be our leadership needs to listen. I certainly didn't hear it on the 12th. The response you gave us on our letter on the 21st was, it was verbiage, but not a phone call, and let's get together and let's talk about this and let's get together. That was February 12th. the House Bill 454 was just passed last week. So yeah, you had time to connect and see whether we could get more specific on the changes we were after. And I'm extremely disappointed because you're our team and you jumped. And that language of school sizes and specific class sizes didn't come out of nowhere. That came out of your support. There's some good parts of the 4854, but if we can't work together, I think it really calls into question whether or not what our partnership with the School Board Association is all about. And I think we're very pleased that you're here, but I think if you don't, we're concerned and we're going to be looking at our options because this is just too big to fail. I'm sorry.
So we have Sarah online, and then I want to give you guys a chance to respond.
Yeah.
Sarah?
So I'm a product of a small rural school. I'm a lifelong Vermonter. I go back 8 generations in Vermont. What I saw when I watched the vote of age 454 was a split between rural Vermont and more urban Vermont. And if that doesn't concern you, it should, because this move to transform education in Vermont is splitting Vermont down the middle, and I don't believe it has to. But if you saw, there has to be a solution that doesn't alienate half the state from the other half of the state. And you can look at WVRSU and other. I mean, we are not only being economically good, we are also academically improving. And I don't believe that there was a mandate to transform education in Vermont. I believe there was a mandate to change how education is funded. And this transformation is huge. It's splitting Vermont, and or you wouldn't be here. I mean, you wouldn't be called to this town, to this meeting if it wasn't splitting that. And in a time when our country is split, it seems really ridiculous to me to be splitting Vermonters one against the other. This also is not driven by data, and that really, 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 really bothers me. No one has. I mean, John O'Brien, when he questioned at the vote, asked what testimony had been taken on data on a number of different things, and every answer to that question was there was no testimony given on it. And that, why we aren't looking at Act 46 and how that affected Vermonters and the savings of money or lack thereof is stupid. It's not the way you do things. So I would suggest that if you think that you represent us, you better start listening to rural Vermont as well as urban Vermont. My guess is that there are more rural Vermont voters than there are urban Vermont voters, but I don't have that data to prove it, and I'll admit I don't have the data. But if you want our support, you need to listen to us and at least take that into consideration when you make testimony before the House or the Senate.
Laura?
Thank you. Yeah, I think we hear you, and I'm sorry that's the way that you're feeling. And I spent some time, at least with you, Bill, in one of our chair meetings, trying to sort of.
Can you speak louder?
Trying to do some of those explanations, but I think what we're going to do today is just try to take a step back, and we're going to take some turns within ourselves and try to do our best. I'm not trying to justify ourselves here. Just we are all in the same boat, and I know that I've said a lot of things in the different letters. We're all interconnected. We're all trying to do the best we can with the circumstances we are right now. I'm going to let Sandra get started. Then I'm going to go, and Sue's going to go, and then we're going to end up with Gio, and then you have time to still ask us questions. And I'll try to project my voice better. Jim and Neil are going to go after Gio, and if you would allow us that, and then
and then we can ask some questions. Does that sound reasonable to you guys? It's your meeting, so.
No, absolutely.
Okay. So Sandra.
Right, thank you. I'll try to speak as loud as I can. And the part that I really want to emphasize is our work alongside boards across Vermont. Boards like yours that are deeply committed to student success. We value your partnership. We've partnered in many different ways, as you highlighted tonight, and your contributions to the collective work around the state and your continued leadership in public education. We want to just take a moment to express our sincere thank you to your board's contributions to the VSBA's Governance Standards Task Force, the VSBA's Task Force on Collaboration to Benefit All Students, looking at you, Stacy, the board chair, vice chair forum, and the 2025 webinar where Kathy and Jamie were panelists. And really, we have received a lot of positive feedback on that. So we really want to thank you for all of that collaboration. The thoughtful engagement of your board members in these statewide initiatives has helped shape meaningful work that strengthens governance and promotes equity across Vermont. Your involvement reflects a deep commitment not only to your local districts, but to the health of our broader public education system. So thank you.
I'm gonna try to project my voice. Can you hear me in the after that? Okay, great. So I want to be also honest about the broader picture. I'm actually changing a little bit what we have in the letter. That the VSBA spent the last, just hearing some of your comments. So we spent the last year testifying about cost drivers in education, pushing hard to ensure we fully understood where pressures were before making a big systematic change. And I think you guys all had the time to look at that testimony the year before. In response to that, the legislature created a commission of the future of public education, right? And we lobbied really, really hard for this, even with all of the challenges that we faced last year. So unfortunately, that commission didn't finish the work before the governor advanced his own reform, which you guys are very familiar with. So, and that proposal was largely driven by the rising frustration on property taxes, or at least that was the narrative that we were not able, as a state, not VSBA, able to turn around on the governor. So this created a challenging moment for us, and as you know, the lawmakers felt pressure to act quickly. And as the VSBA, we had to decide how to stay engaged, right? And we didn't want to also lose credibility or lose influence because we had to be strategic, right? We're working with politics, right? We're like trying to be as effective as we can on your behalf. So I'm gonna go backwards now. So I want to start, or not start because I already started, by acknowledging that your board holds a different position than the VSBA on H454. I know that has been really hard. It's been hard on us, and it has weighed heavily on us too. We really respect that. Every school board is rooted in its own context. You know, Vermont, as far as I'm concerned, we're the second rural state in the nation, and that's a fact. So there's no real urban in Vermont. So we are all rural. So, and we admire the work that you're doing, and, you know, listening to your presentation. So I was like, oh, I have some questions. We could do that too in our district. But, you know, so you're doing good work. And the VSBA is not here to, you expect everyone to agree. We're here to connect school boards across the 11 regions. Our strength is in our diversity of perspectives, right? When the VSBA board supported H54, the only correction I want to make is that the middle was, as you guys are all done bargaining, you know, the middle was that, you know, we are not super happy, but we're not going to oppose it. So it was not like a no. It was like, you know, we're not going to oppose for you moving forward. So that was what we were working with. It wasn't because we saw that this bill was perfect. It was because we thought that this was a solution that would allow us to shape the process in a more thoughtful and collaborative, because it was not done yet. We recognize that there are other organizations lifting up the voices of rural communities. And that's part of what makes democracy work for all of us, right? Multiple voices pushing, like you're testifying tomorrow, we're testifying too. And that's what makes things move, all of those different perspectives. So I hope that before you make any rush action, you would allow at least the process through the legislature to go through and see what that bill looks like when, you know, once we have the full picture. And I also want to say that if we had opposed the bill outright, we could have shut down our influence, sent the wrong message to the taxpayers, and weaken our ability to shape, with all those multiple perspectives. Measure support gives us a best chance to protect the things that we all care most about, which is what you care about, the students, our schools, and our voice for public education. I don't know. I think at the heart of this, like most of the letter said, is our shared values, right? Our interconnection. And I don't see us, again, as rural or urban. I see us as all rural in Vermont. We're all trying to drive the same opportunities and talk about all our kids as a whole. We are interconnected in the state, whether we want it or not. It's not just by one region. It's all of us together. So I will leave it at that and pass it to Sue to talk about all the other things that we do.
Yeah, and I have one
USBA.
follow-up too about H 454. It's definitely not a perfect bill, and VSBA's testimony tomorrow is going to point out some changes that we would like to see to it. One of them being on the district size duties of that district boundary subcommittee. There, right now it says minimum 4,000 students, and we're going to be recommending, a change to that language. That's not something that we ever had the chance to testify on in the House. So we're not going to be recommending a number. We think that it should be research-based. And it sounds like that's something that, this group might agree with, that you're looking for data and research. I also wanted to make sure that you had seen our 2025 legislative platform. It's on our website, because I know Sarah Root was talking a lot about data, and one of the things that we stressed under our education funding priorities is that provide data and modeling to show the impact on districts over time. And when I testified to committees at the beginning of the session introducing the VSBA, I talked about the information that's on the front that talks about who we are, who our members are, and then on the back, the priorities for 2025, including that important point about data and modeling. And we also had a whole section on education cost drivers. So I definitely would encourage you to take a look at the 2025 legislative platform. I might have a couple more in my bag, but I can leave this one here, and it is on our website as well. And then I was just going to talk very briefly about the benefits of membership. I think all of you, have experienced them and you know them, so I'm not going to go on and on about them. But I just wanted to really note the time we are in history here with this rapidly changing environment. At the federal level, things are changing very quickly. Legally, financially, we are wondering about whether Vermont's going to receive all the federal funds that it's entitled to. And it's really important in such a dynamic environment to have somewhere where you can get information, and VSBA really works hard to be that source for you. So, we provide the policy and the legal guidance, updates on key federal and state court cases. Tomorrow in our weekly update email, there'll be an updated document on the executive orders that we have that we're keeping track of, and the court cases that are associated with them. We have our legislative reports, and of course our model policy manual is probably something that you use quite a bit. Training and leadership development through our monthly webinars, and our new board member academy, the chair, vice chair forum, and the individualized board training. And then, of course, the governance and operational tools that we provide, like the superintendent evaluation toolkit and service, and superintendent search service. I know I believe you're in the middle of some negotiations. We have a very good negotiations toolkit, and hopefully you are utilizing that, because it has a database with other collective bargaining agreements throughout the state that you can use in your bargaining. And wanted to also let you know, that we have phone, email, and in-person consultation. If you ever have questions, please feel free to contact any of us at the VSBA. And if it's not the right person, we'll get you to the right person. So I think with that, I'll turn it over to Gio.
Hi, so I'm a Royalton resident. I play a unique role here. I've sat at this table for 12 years. Actually, it wasn't this table for 12, was it, Kathy? And I'll just go back in history a little bit. When I and Kathy, we came on about the same time, and it was quite balkanized, this SU. And Kathy and I and a few others worked really hard to bring it together. And basically every initiative the state came up with, we were doing before the state did it. Negotiations, we had started that together. Making special ed services, we were doing that together before. So I get what you guys have. I'm not a stranger to it. And I'm not here to say H454, you guys should support. I'm not saying that either. What I'm going to give you is my perspective as sitting at this table for 12 years, and I was on the VSBA board. I served when Act 46 was happening. I was the vice president. Immediately after Act 46 happened, I was the president. We had members drop off the VSBA. They're all back, from what I understand. A few of them formed their own organization. Not many of them dropped, and they did. You won't have the force in the State House. And I'm almost betting that none of you have been in that State House very much lobbying and talking. I know Jamie has started the process. You got a team here that knows what they're doing. They're respected in the State House. If you drop off the VSBA, you're signing out. You're going dark. If you want to make an impact on what happens next, you got to stay involved with the VSBA. Push them. Push them, tell them what you're thinking. Make an impact there, because they're the ones who are going to carry something out. If you go dark with the VSBA, your voice it's gone. It's not heard. It's no longer at the table. And I think that would be a big mistake for your constituents. The other thing is Act 454 is not going to look like it looks now. It's if you think that's going to pass as it's written, you need to study what happens in the legislature a lot more. It's going to morph into something. So it's just the starting process for what's going to happen. Don't go dark now as this is coming up. I looked at your concerns that you had, the criteria that you kind of set in your letter. And I agree with all those things. This needs to be a thought out process. And if you drop off, then you're not being part of the think tank that's going to help create this. This is going to happen whether you like it or not. So the governor wants something. He wants 5 districts. You definitely don't want that. Bogart's in the Senate, Ed has talked about 11 districts. This plan doesn't know yet. They said, let's study this. You got to hitch your train to something. But the one thing that the House, Senate, and Ed and the governor all have in common is they're going to do this. Something's going to change. And I'm going to tell you, these guys won't say it, but I'll say it. You guys aren't going to look the same. This is going to change. And you can fight this tooth and nail, and it's going to change. Or you can help craft and get something that works for us. All right, maybe it looks a little different. I don't know what it's going to look like. We're a long way from it. But I urge you guys, do not drop out of the VSBA, because you're going to give up your voice. Don't do that.
Thank you, Gio. And we agree with the criteria too. Jim, do you want to share your perspective, Jim?
Sure. I'm here partially because as I mentioned before, I'm the chair of the Bennington-Rutland Supervisory Union. We operate 3 districts in southern Vermont, about 2,100 students. Each of our 3 districts has a different operating structure. One is K-8, one is K-6, and the other is non-operating. We're an oddball because we're the second biggest SU in the state, and we have 0 public high schools in our 460 square miles. So our kids most of our kids go to two different independent schools, most of them actually to Burton Academy. So we've had, that is, and I've got to tell you, that in our area is issue number one for our residents, is the issue of school choice and how independent schools fit into our system. And it is a very big issue. We had, a few weeks back, we had a session at Burton Academy where Seth Bongartz had his Senate bill that he was presenting. We had 1,000 people in the gym and 3,000 people online watching that. So we have, it's a huge issue here. And it's an issue that I periodically, including as recently as in the last couple of months, get people coming up to me and saying, you're chair of the SU, you guys really should dump the VSBA because the VSBA is not representing us on this issue. And that's been an issue over time. And we've, honestly, we took our approach to recognizing the fact I have been on the VSBA board for quite a few years now. And the Bennington region is represented by 2 people from my school district. And our approach to feeling that the VSBA didn't represent us on that issue was initially getting annoyed, but then later realizing that honestly, we were the outlier. This is an important issue to our community, one of the most important issues to our community. But we spent a lot of time at the, we threw ourselves fully into the VSBA board and getting involved with it. And we've had 2 people from our district being representatives for the Bennington region for the past 8 years, I guess. And what that's given us is a chance to argue our case and make sure people are aware of our issue. We realized that on that particular issue, we don't really expect to get the rest of the school boards in the state to hop over to our side because it's just not an issue that is their issue. Now, H454 is a much bigger issue and everybody's involved in that. Absolutely, it's a different issue. But our approach to the VSBA not being viewed by people as representing our district is we said, okay, let's make sure we're a part of the VSBA, we're a part of the discussion. And when it comes to issues like our particular issue, we fully recognize that the VSBA is not going to be our advocate. So we recognize that we have to be our advocate on that issue. What we found over time is that on almost everything else, the VSBA is an extremely strong advocate for the positions that we also hold. But there are going to be those cases where the VSBA isn't going to be directly in line. And, as has been suggested, I mean, I would suggest to you guys, just based on the experience of our districts, that's when you make sure that you get your feet, in there on impacting the VSBA, be a part of those votes and all. Make sure you're represented on the board and, and try to influence it. You won't always win because, what I've found, the VSBA does a lot of things for us. Sue brought up some of those, Gio brought up some of those, and they do a heck of a lot of things for us that are extremely important. Like we wouldn't be able to advocate for ourselves on our big issue if we didn't have all the information on what's going on in the legislature from the VSBA. We get a ton of information. That's how we stay on top of things. We also, we create connections through them all, but we recognize that the VSBA, being on the board for a bunch of years, there are a lot of issues that not everybody can agree to. And I think the VSBA board over time has really tried to figure out a way to accommodate as many viewpoints as possible. But it's really tough if you're asked to take, like Sue was specifically asked to take a position on whether or not the VSBA supported that DSA, VSA memo that went into House Ed. And so, we discussed that and tried to reach a point. I give Sue a lot of credit because she's not going to just assume a position. She's going to make sure that we actually get input at the VSBA board level on whether or not that, that is a position that can be supported. It's really, really tough when it is a close call. But the VSBA, to be effective, has to, present something. And I think in this case, I think Geo nailed it in pointing out that this bill is in its early stages still. It is going to change a whole lot, and our job has just gotten started. As far as I was happy we were actually able to directly advocate for some changes that got into the House bill before the House approved it. If those changes hadn't been made, we were a definite no vote on the bill. But we got a few changes made to get it a little further down the road to something we could potentially support. It needs a lot of work. There are, from our districts, we have the same issue as you. None of our schools, you look at things like the intent for 450 student schools. None of our schools are that big. We have, our current school structure. We can't meet the class sizes, but we, like you, think we view ourselves as a pretty good functioning SU. Our budget increases, just like yours, have been way below the rest of the state. We have been in process for the last 2 years on engaging our public with how to restructure our schools, which means probably, we're talking about closing from 2 to 4 of our 6 schools, in a restructure. So we've been, actively, just like you guys, trying to stay ahead of the curve and get things, to act in a reasonable fashion. And, for my money, it's, the VSBA has actually been a huge support in helping us to accomplish some of those things and being able to rely on them to be a good advocate for the 95% of the issues where we are in alignment. So, my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Neil, you have something to add?
Oh no, VSBA has taken up a lot of talk time in this meeting tonight, and so I'm one of your Windsor reps. I am open to meeting and talking with any of you at any point in time, and conversations that we have, I just bring those straight back to Sue, Flora, and the VSBA board. Use me as that conduit. If you're trying to make sure that your voices are heard, that's where you use me.
Thank you. And Stacy, you had a question?
I did. I'm just trying to understand the tone of what I'm hearing from you all is kind of like, if you don't support this, you're going to miss out on making it into something. And that's kind of the message I'm getting from you all. Is that fair?
I think what I would say to that is that we have tried our best to be strategic. We have to get our foot in the door and be able to be part of the conversation at the State House. And we know that the bill is still in flux, so it's not done yet. So what we want to be is able to be part of that conversation. Is the bill perfect? No, I think we are all in agreement here that the bill is not perfect, that it needs a lot of work. But we are also all in agreement that change is coming, whether we want it or not. That is the state that we are right now in our state. So we are trying to do our best to inform that change. So it's not done upon us, but we're part of the conversation, right?
I understand that, but
Yeah.
to follow up,
Yeah.
my further question is, a lot of what locally I think that I hear as a board member is that we haven't defined the problem. We haven't come up with a process that's going to make us feel secure as a community that we're not going to lose our schools or resources, or our property taxes, our property values aren't going to tank because no one's going to want to move here because there's no local schools. I think we're not getting the reassurances of basic concepts that make our towns and our schools who and what they are from you all. And I think that we've presented that, and we've also stated how we kind of feel not seen and not represented by you. But then we're hearing, well, but if you don't stay with us or you do something drastic, then, well, you know, you're out of luck. Which I think is a pretty bad statement. Sometimes just saying something needs to go back to the beginning, or drawing the line and saying, hey, this is not the best process, even if it does have ramifications, is of value, especially when you're trying to maintain your community's infrastructure and your children's education. So bending over and saying, I'm going to blow like a weed in the wind, and letting them just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, but you're going to kind of steer into the skid. I don't think that that's a great process or path to follow when it comes to education.
Could I follow up on that?
Sure, and then I'll get to you, Sana.
Yeah, I wanted to.
Can I respond to that just real quick, Kathy? Because I think it wasn't the VSBA people saying that. It was me saying that if you walk away, you're going to be dropping your voice. I was the one who said that. They didn't really say that. And
No, I did hear that. I also heard, don't do anything drastic.
I'll give you that from my perspective and what I saw happen during Act 46 when I was on the VSBA. Those who dropped out of the process, they became voiceless in the process.
Yeah. So
it shouldn't be that way.
Okay. I do agree with that. It should be that way,
Okay.
but I hear you, Gio, that it is that way if we need to keep our voice at the table.
Yeah, I think the voice issue is that she just raised is really important, and I was not referring to your bringing it up finally, but also the comments that you made about this, we're trying to make democracy work, and also the comment early on that we're all rural. I think some of us are way more rural than others. I was elected new board member. I was elected May 4th to represent Bethel. I moved here from Chicago. I bought a house 5 years ago. My son and his husband moved here and started a business. And they are part of what is known as the Bethel Revitalization Project, which is inviting more people to come to Bethel, inviting more businesses to open, etc. And I assumed that part of my responsibility as board member was to talk to parents of kids who go to the schools here. And people are extremely anxious and also upset that there was relatively no, if any, consultation with parents as to what they thought about all this particular, possible reorganization of the schools and restructuring and so forth. And almost everybody to a person told me they live here in part so their children can go to school here, so they can take their child in the car in the morning to school and pick them up afterwards. And that's part of why they want to live here. Bethel has about 2,000, a few more than 2,000 people. And a number of the people I spoke with have said, we will move to some other state that allows us to send our children to the sort of local school that we want to go to, which seems to me crazy in a state that's already losing population and that everybody has hair like mine here, we're old, to try out a new system or project a new system, and particularly to say, well, there's a new system that we may have to go along with in some form without having consulted the people who are most impacted, which is the parents of the students. So I'm just bringing that issue up because that's what I hear every single person I talk to here is peeved about that. And also, as Nancy brought up, has been very proud of the fact that we have done as much as we can, and in your community as well, to keep the expenses down to the point that people can stay, that the taxes don't get up, that they don't have to have their kids bussed all over the place. And I just wanted to bring that up because I think the voice issue is what's been missing here from what everybody tells me, and I have certainly felt that myself.
Well, and there's very little to quiet that anxiety. there's very little data, as we keep saying.
Right.
There's very little research that's gone in, and there's very little answer to, well, what does that mean for us? Well, we'll tell you later. Well, you have to support us to get to the point where we can tell you what it's going to look like. It's a very hard message to bring back to the board, back to the parents.
Sonny, you had something.
Well, I just wanted to express, I mean, I do agree with the most recent sentiments that was shared. I'm essentially echoing some of that, but I think at the root of this issue is that it felt as though decisions were made and it was kind of like a runaway train where we were expected to grab on and run to keep up without fully understanding. And like, you know, I agree that we need to stay in this conversation. I agree that we continue to need a seat at the table, but, you know, there are differences in degrees of rural, and when decisions are being made that essentially are telling us it's going to be fine when we don't have anything quantifiable or qualitative, as others have expressed, that we can take back to people in this community. I mean, often when we are very rural, we're expected to be the most adaptable, to run with the ideas in less rural areas, to be the ones to compromise the most or adapt the most, because there's lesser weight given, because we are part of smaller populations. I think, you know, the piece that we're trying to get at is that there needs to be a greater degree of transparency and inclusivity in some of this, you know, kind of in ensuring that we are well represented and that we are well heard. And so, I mean, I essentially just wanted to echo that. And I do understand that there will be compromise. Not everyone's going to get what everyone will want to get. But at the heart of this is that this is going to affect like countless lives in ways that are not necessarily captured by quantitative measures. And we haven't been reassured that there's been qualitative research that, and it's so complex because this is tied into tax reform and cost of healthcare and so on. You know, I'm newer to Vermont. It's a very complex situation that has not been addressed until like the 11th hour. And now there's suddenly the scrambling, like you have to get on board and agree to what is happening, when this was really a process that should have taken a long time. You know, I appreciate us coming together and having this conversation discussion. I just wanted to express so that, you know, the concerns that we are raising are ones that ripple across people's lives, and in the long run in ways that can't necessarily be captured on paper, will be to the detriment of families in ways that, like, you know, a kid that could go to college or that may lose opportunities later on, and that will be to Vermont's detriment. They may not bring their families back here if, you know, they don't feel that the education system is going to meet their needs. Anyway, just wanted to kind of share my 2 cents. I am newer to the board and I'm still trying to understand everything that's going on, but I think transparency and inclusivity and really, really like hearing our concerns will be important moving forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Kirsty. Dustin, and then I want to say something too. Dustin?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, for one, I do want to reiterate, I do appreciate you guys showing up. I know it's hard, especially when you know, you're expecting what you're receiving. And but yeah, I think I just definitely want to reiterate a lot of what people have been saying. You know, with the whole, I feel that, you know, we have received a really lack of data as far as, you know, I know that's been said over and over and over, where, you know, I think you guys have communicated where you wanted to, you know, well, reach out to you guys to provide suggestions or hear our voice, right? Well, I think we have done that. And, you know, you mentioned to not be rushed in our reaction. Like, I don't think we have been rushed at all. I think that's one of the reasons you guys were invited here, right? So we're not rushing into this decision. This is, you know, we are, you know, I'm very proud of the board, our whole SU, you know, that the way we interact and work together. Yeah, so I just wanted to reiterate that. And I think the communication piece seems to be a big piece. I think the way that, you know, that we hear the response is, I think, a big piece of, kind of us not feeling heard. You know what I mean? So I think going forward, if that could be improved as far as to really kind of take the time to listen and respond in a way where both parties, feel respected and not demeaned. And I think my final point is that I think one of our concerns is, I think you guys are great and have lots of resources, but you respond when we reach out. I think what we would like to see is for you guys to reach out rather than react to us sending notes to you guys. So, that's all I want to say. But thanks again for being here.
So one of the things I want to say, as a board chair, if I had 8 yeses and 7 sideways, that would tell me we need to spend a lot more time talking, because I really try hard to get closer to consensus. And I think everybody in my board will say that I work really hard to make sure that everybody is heard and we're feeling like all the player, like a sideways vote to me is okay in negotiations, but it's not. We don't do that on the board. So that's just me as a board chair, what I find important. I know we keep saying that, this board is, this bill is a long way from where it's going to end up. But what scares me about it is how far do they get with it before we say we can't live with this? And that's where we're feeling like you're not hearing us. We think there's a place for supervisory unions. It's important to us that we keep that model somehow. And I don't think that we're there yet with you guys understanding us on that point. We're not a supervisory union district area. That it's not gonna, it wouldn't work in this area the way we're set up. Maybe in some of the more rural areas, some of those schools can be combined because they're closer together. But if you look at our geography, that's just not going to work. And that's why we're fighting so hard for you to hear what's not going to work for us and why it's not going to work. So that's my 2 cents so far in this. And I know, Eric, you had your hand up.
Thank you. I'll try to be really brief. I have been aware of and really admire the work that Flora and Neil have done for our state for many years. I've had the pleasure of speaking with Flora, and I still refer individuals to a few of Neil's YouTube videos in terms of helping to understand how education is funded in Vermont. And I say that as preface to, because I don't know the rest of the folks in the board as well. I say that as preface to that there is no question that the VSBA provides indispensable services to all of the school boards across the state. There is just no arguing that. And that we absolutely get some incredible benefit from our membership in the VSBA. What I think is being missed by the VSBA in this conversation is what is the issue in terms of engagement with the local boards. When there is a request to speak on behalf of all the boards in the state, you best be sure that you're actually speaking for all the boards in the state. And it's not like we actually stood back and didn't communicate with you about some of the concerns that we have, the direction in which both the governor and the legislature were heading in. We did take the time to ensure that you were hearing some of our concerns about what was being considered in Montpelier. So I just want to be clear. I absolutely appreciate the benefits of being a part of the VSBA. There is a difference between dropping off from the conversation and being pushed off the conversation. And a little bit of what this feels like is that we're being pushed off the conversation. And what I would ask for the VSBA to consider is how to ensure that people like us, your membership, don't feel like you're being pushed off. Thank you.
on your point that there's a lot of work still that can be done on that bill. From what I've been reading in the news anyways, is that everybody's in agreement that, you know, they have the support of the VSBA, they have the support of all of these other organizations. So why would they feel the need to do any negotiating on that bill if that's what the message has been? My fear is it's gonna just keep on going the way it is and everybody's going to claim that everybody was happy with it.
That was kind of what I was saying, is like, when do we put the brakes on? Like, it was like, where and when does that happen? How does
Yeah,
that happen?
but so far in the news anyways, what they've been reporting is that, yeah, everybody's saying this is the right thing to do.
I think a couple of things that I would like to share, and I agree with you, Stacey. I actually, to a fault, sometimes try to get too much consensus, you know, and you have to move forward, right? So part of doing that vote in interest-based for all the board was because we have to move at the pace of the legislature. We can't move at our own pace. We can't. So we absolutely, we need to work harder at being able to, as our individual reps, to be able to get more feedback from the field, and we try to work hard. We have done some progress on that. Clearly, not enough progress yet, and I'd be able to reach out to you. I think there's two different kinds of engagement. What we were hoping is that this was not going to bypass the Commission of the Future of Public Education. That's where the engagement needed to happen for a lot of this data. We kept pushing last year. There's not enough data. There is not enough thoughtful process. You're going to do draconian cost cuts if we don't have a vision for public education first. And that's why we insisted in the commission. We had no control in how the governor went around the commission. So it's not just our voices, because when we make a decision at the board, and I think I put that in one of the letters, right? You are one region, you're Neil's region. So Neil can vote down, but then I have 10 other regions that are saying, yes, please move forward with it. And then once we make the decision, we move forward with that. And it's not to not listen to you, because all of this now is important to us. We're testifying tomorrow, and we can use what we're hearing from you, and that's what we're using to testify and change some of the things on the bill. It's just we don't get to choose the pace of how we testify. We're moving to the pace that things are happening, and this year the session is even going to extend, right? So there's no precedent for that. We are going to continue to be able to try our best to inform them. And then as far as my background, I don't know, like I became a citizen to be a board member. I believe in education as much as you do, so it's not I believe public education is the foundation of our democracy. I grew up in a different country, and that's conversations that I connect with Eric on, or different people, and say, I absolutely know what is at stake. We just participated with Neil in Have You Heard the podcast too? And you can hear all of the voices from Vermont. We are at the verge of a precipice, and we better rethink what we can completely undo Vermont if we're not thoughtful. Those conversations, we're bringing it up. We are constantly talking with other people and testifying. So I'm not gonna plea, but I just said, like, we really appreciate your voice in our association. We hope that you can, provide resolutions. We hope that you can continue to have a conversation with us. We absolutely want to continue to meet with you and make sure that we're representing your voice. I don't know what else to add, because I know that you guys have a long meeting today.
Jamie has a question.
Go ahead.
You go first.
Well, my question was, we speak of this bill not being in its final form by any means, and lots to change. So my question is, what are you guys advocating to change in this bill?
So one of the things that we're advocating to change, I spoke about earlier, which is the district size, the minimum district size. Right now it says 4,000 students, and we're advocating that there shouldn't be a number in there, that the district boundary subcommittee should be able to have the ability to propose 3 options to the legislature based on that are research based and not have a number in there. So I think that's really big. The school size language in there is intent language. It's really tied to the school construction aid program. it is not a requirement currently. And that's something that we could certainly point out as well.
So the minimum class size is not tied, it's only for schools construction, it's not.
No, not the minimum class size, the school size, the minimum school size. Yeah, right, exactly.
Okay.
And also we're trying to add a member to the
Yes,
committee.
yes, yes. We're there is the possibility of one school board member on that school district boundary subcommittee. We pushed very hard in House Education to have more school board members on there. And the House Education Committee was not receptive to that. So we're going to be pushing for that tomorrow with the Senate Education Committee, because right now it says that the Speaker of the House can choose one former or retired superintendent and one former or retired school business manager or a former or retired school board member. So there's not even a guarantee of one school board member on that right now. So we're pushing for, at least one school board member, if not more, to be on there. So those are some of the things that we're actually, when I get to Montpelier tonight, I'm going to be writing the testimony, because we only got the request today, Jamie.
I haven't sorted it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and I assume, as Jim was saying, that school choice is not something that you guys are advocating for then.
No,
Absolutely not. And we're also advocating to the waiver for rurality, right?
Yes.
So make sure that we are expressing our support to emphasize that we need to support a waiver for rurality. So whatever that is gonna look like, so defining
right.
geographic
isolation of schools.
Yeah.
That needs to be defined as well.
Yes.
What
right now
what
in the bill,
geographic
it
isolation
has,
would be.
right now in the bill, it has the State Board of Education doing rulemaking on that to define geographic isolation. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about tomorrow is a concern about the State Board of Education. We want to make sure that it is an effective board. We want to make sure that it's a well-resourced board that can actually function well in support of education. And that's one of the major concerns from the report of the Task Force on Collaboration to Benefit All Students that Stacy Peters was on. We're using that task force report to push for more reforms for the State Board of Education. There's a little bit of change for the State Board in H454, but we don't think it goes far enough. So that's another piece that we'll be pushing for.
Kathy, can I say one other thing?
Yeah, Jamie had a question first.
So I'm just curious for the VSBA, really for the record. I know that there hasn't been support to testify in the support of supervisory unions in regards to transformation. And in regards to looking at cost analysis data and things of that nature, it's clear the data shows that supervisory districts are not outperforming supervisory unions in regards to financial savings. And so in regards to not wanting to support the supervisory union structure, is it fair to say that that's really about decreasing the number of boards and consolidating boards? And is it, because that's really all that does. By not supporting the supervisory union structure, you're saying you want less boards and you're going to do forced mergers. And to me, that results in the depersonalization of decision-making around closing schools. Larger board can make it easier to close smaller schools. No one says that publicly, but you look at the legislation and the promise of savings. I don't know how you hit the savings that we're all talking about if you don't do that. You don't close schools. Just consolidating SU offices, that's not going to get the savings that we're talking about as a state for sustainability. And so I'm just curious to why such strong opposition. I'm not including that as a possibility in regards to that commission, in regards to drawing maps.
Is it okay if I go?
Yeah.
I think a couple of things that I would say, Jamie, I think that what we always try to do is go back to students.
I'm sorry, can you speak up a little? I'm having a hard time hearing you.
What we always try to do, we represent boards, but we also try to go back to students, right? So you're mentioning the data. So your supervisory union is extraordinary, right? We don't have the data to show that for all of our supervisory unions. We don't have the ability or not have enough data right now to really compare. So if you're doing a cost comparison between an SU and a school district, how are you doing a multi-tier system as opposed to fidelity, right? Like the important questions you guys were talking. So we don't have a uniformity of data across the state to make sure that is the case, right? What we hear also from superintendents, that might be a different opinion from yours, is that for them to be able to best serve and still be instructional leaders, having multiple board meetings doesn't allow them to be inspiration for the principals and be a leader in their district, doesn't allow them to do what is best for students, right? Those are some of we're hearing more of those than we're hearing from you. So the data is a little bit different on that. So we don't have, yes, you guys are one district with many board members. We respect that, but that is not what we're hearing from the field. So what we want from the field is better outcomes for the kids. That's the only reason we are not speaking more about supervision, because I think it's more effective for us to do the rurality, and is it to allow you to have the composition that you want to have. I don't know, and we don't have enough data ourselves yet to.
But that feels like there's an assumption that the supervisory district can better serve kids than the supervisory union, if you're not willing to include it. Because you said it's about kids. We all agree it's about kids. That's what this is about. And one of the concerns I think the boards have, and certainly I have as an educator, is that when we get to larger districts that can result in less personalized decisions, is we have an example right up the road where Montpelier closed Roxbury Public School, and we know those students are on the buses now for 2 hours. I don't think that was the best decision for kids.
And I would go a step back, Jim and I had this conversation many times, Montpelier should have divorced, that was on the state board. That was not even, the state board allowed a merger of 2 districts that were really far from each other. Roxbury, and that was also driven by Roxbury to a certain degree. And we didn't get to, we didn't get to pick that. You didn't get to pick that, but rurality and who is next to them, they should have been unified with Northfield. I don't know, would you agree? Does it make, they had the 12 students, like we don't get to make
We
those
can talk
and we
about the
can-
makeup. I think what I'm trying to point out to the VSBA and what I'm saying is that there could be unintended consequences by moving to larger forced merged districts. And if you want superintendents to focus on kids and you go merging them into maps that some committee drew, do you know what those superintendents are going to be doing? So what I did when I first got here, put out fires left and right of communities who are upset. So if you want superintendents focusing on kids, you better create some choice in regards to how those communities get to decide who they want to partner with.
We completely agree with that. And we don't want kids bus for 2 hours. We completely agree with that.
So I just would say one of the things that I think our board's been trying to say is more testimony about real accountability measures and holding districts and supervisory unions and supervisory districts accountable to those, and having clear metrics around that, around student performance and around efficiencies and scale. I think all the board is supportive of that. It's what we would hold ourselves to. But the AOE's lost its way in accountability. But we're not talking about that enough. But we should-
If I could, I was just thinking that Senate Finance heard last week from the Agency of Education and asked them to come back and go section by section through the bill and talk about where the recommendations are, what their concerns are. And I think all of us need to be holding them accountable around where's the data? Show us the data, right? And if we can all be urging every legislative committee to be demanding that, that's really powerful.
But I would just say, I think Nancy hit it on the head. I think there was a mistake made now in regards to the testimony that's come out around H454, that the V's all support it, and so that the field supports it. And I hope we have some grave concern around the fact that we're going to ask our educators to go through another transformation. When an SU like this just merged 2 SUs and went from 10 town school districts into merged unified districts, I've got students that could possibly go to their 3rd district in this bill. It is crazy. And we had a pandemic in the middle of it. Don't give them a soundbite to look like the educators in the field are supporting another upheaval of education throughout the state.
Thank you, Kathy. So I want to make clear that any statement I make is not a VSBA statement. I am no longer in the VSBA. But I think this is perfect. They're listening. If you drop out, they respond to their members. They don't respond to their non-members. You give up the voice. So,
You're assuming the board is the only authority of the citizenry of
no.
Vermont.
You can petition anybody. Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm just saying that when you give up the VSBA voice, they are sought out people in the state
I
house.
think we know that. You know, I think all of us have been engaged with these issues. Everybody here much longer than I. I mean, I was when I lived in Chicago before in a similar position, constantly having to monitor what was going on in public schools, what was going on in public universities, and who were the responsible organizations to represent. And I think that part of what we are trying to decide, and correct me if I'm wrong, is this the vehicle through which our voices and the voices of our students and parents and communities get heard? And that's why we're having this conversation.
Yeah.
It's not to say, oh, if you drop out, if you leave this organization, you'll be up shit creek, pardon my language, you know, because I think that's what you initially sounded like.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Not, these guys aren't saying that, but what I'm saying is I've sat.
How does that help us decide how to?
I'm one of your constituents. That's why I'm here, right? I'm here as a constituent. I'm not here as a VSBA board member. I'm not here as a VSBA staffer. And I'm saying I've been in the halls. I've testified a lot. I've seen how the VSBA gets sought out. I'm going to wager that nobody else in this room has the experience that I have alone in being in the State House. I think Jamie's starting to accumulate that experience. I don't know how much you've been up there, but I've seen what goes on up there. And we don't want to give this up. And David, you're right. This is moving way too fast. You're 100% right. But the legislature sets the pace. We can't, as the VSBA can't just like, oh, wait, we're not in favor of this and everything screeches to a halt. But stay engaged with them, push them like you're pushing them tonight. I like that. I'm okay with that. You know, I don't necessarily agree with everything I've heard, but that's all right. Push them. Tell them what you think. The other thing is there's no such thing as unanimity in the VSBA. When I was the president once, I forget what the exact bill was, something to do with tobacco in schools. I forget, not banning tobacco, but something about that. We had one board member voted no. So if we waited for unanimity, well, the VSBA miles have shut the doors now because it's not going to happen. So we have to get as close as we can, like Kathy was saying.
I wasn't saying unanimity, Gio.
Yeah, I know that. But
I'm saying 8-7, no.
and I would have some concerns there too, Kathy.
Okay.
But that's it.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for being here. Yeah,
So-
going back to process.
So we have a couple
I'm
more
sorry.
online that had their hands up first. If you let them.
I apologize.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I didn't see who was first, but I heard you ding first, Stacy, and then we'll go to Jim.
Yeah, so I appreciate that you're here listening. And the process is moving fast. Everyone's saying the process is moving fast. We don't set the process. We don't set the process. The legislator does. Sometimes you have to say out loud, stamp your feet, call the news. This is moving too fast. This affects our kids, and draw that line in the sand and have that conversation. And I feel like we're just getting kind of pushed into this, which I don't particularly like, but you are here, you are listening. How is that the fact that you're here and listening going to change what you say tomorrow to make sure that rural districts and rural schools are represented, and that we're not just lumping everybody together. Because when I've heard testimony before, when I've read things, it's very bland in terms of yep, yep, yep. I think we need a little spicy. And I'd like to see you guys get a little spicy and explain that this is something that is not what, even if you just said in the meetings, in the testimony, we have a lot of opinions on this and rural boards need to be represented too. I'm pretty sure everybody who's in this room and everybody who's virtual would at least appreciate that. So that's kind of what I'm asking for. What is going to change from your past statements, which I've read and listened to, and I appreciate you coming here. What are you going to say tomorrow to include our, meaning FBUD and White River Valley and everybody's opinions that are not unanimous, but still need to be reflected? They need to be reflected. And I yield.
Jim, and then we'll go.
I could just respond to Stacy a little bit if
Okay.
you want me to. I would, as I was saying, it's not written yet, but we'll be working on it tonight. It's in the process of being written, and something that's already in there is a statement very similar to what you just said, Stacy. That you know, that not all boards think the same, and that we encourage them and urge them to hear from different voices.
Thank you. I appreciate. So, like, government doesn't work when you leap before you look. And we're not looking with a very important thing. We're not looking with our kids and their education and many other potential ramifications in Vermont. So
I think
if I was in your position, I would have my feet on the ground stamping, saying we need to look, we need the data. And I know you have done that a lot, but sometimes you have to disagree to get them to give you that data. And that's what I want to see, the data. Sorry, I apologize.
That's okay. Jim?
Yeah, you know, one thing on Stacy.
Nope. Jim. It's just him.
I know Jim pretty well. He does his best work like that.
Wait, I think, am I frozen? Or what? Oh, okay. There. Thanks a lot, Gio. Okay. Okay. Now, I just wanted to say that, you know, the VSBA and others, you know, in partnership with VSA, VPA, and others, it was a lot of foot stamping that led to the governor's bill not going forward in the way it was originally presented. So I think that, you know, you have to recognize that if nobody had done anything, we'd probably be talking about the governor's bill in 5 districts right now. So there's, you know, been a decent amount accomplished. But I'd also really, you know, suggest to you guys, you know, that I hope you stick with the SBA and continue to provide your input and all. But as I said before, we've also recognized in my district, you know, there's certain issues that we have to represent ourselves on. But
Oh, no.
You all know this is the most important point of the night, right?
okay, keep going in and out here. But on 454, our district has sent several communications to all our local legislators, to all members of House Ed, to all members of Senate Ed, to provide our input to them as to what we think is important. I think you guys should be doing the same thing. You know, it's you know, use the organizations that you're a part of to argue your point. But honestly, nothing has more impact than when individual board members and boards as a whole communicate to their legislators. It makes a big difference. So, you know, I just recommend that, you know, don't just rely on the SBA, do it yourself too.
If I may respond to that really quickly.
Say what?
If I may respond to that really quickly.
Yes, we have 2 people down here who want to speak too, so.
Yeah, I just, thank you. Jim, I appreciate the comment, I really do. I would say that every single member of this board has one way or another engaged with our legislators on this issue. I think that the issue that we're discussing tonight goes a little bit beyond that, and that is the feeling that we have that that the organization that we belong to outside of our boards and outside of the advocacy that we do for our towns is actually acting against us. That's the disconnect that we're trying to ameliorate and get through, to understand whether we can continue to belong to a group that feels like, whether it may not be true or not, it feels like it's acting contrary to our to the interests that we're trying to convey to our legislators.
Thank you, Eric. Bill, and then your turn. Something?
Yeah, I think just like what Eric said, I think what we're looking for is more than, well, we need to put our oar in the water more or get our boat to go faster. I think we're looking for a sign from you, not only to say be here, and it's important you're all here tonight listening very much, but what process are you going to develop to have to increase the input of basically rural SUs and SDs? Are there, I can't believe that everything on this bill, there's that you're hanging your hat on saying you've got to have it, you've got to have it, you've got to have it. What's your mechanism to have a process? We're being proactive, you're being proactive, saying, hey, come on, let's look at this together. What else can we do to make this a better bill? But I haven't heard that. I mean, we've got Jamie Canarney, he's one of the top superintendents, not the top superintendents in the state of Vermont. And we've got some dynamite board members, and I'm sure others SUs up there too, but I haven't heard them saying, yeah, we're going to look at whether it's a subcommittee, or we're going to look at how we can tap those voices in an ongoing process, not only for this legislation, but what about when the commission convenes and has a year to come up with all the answers? How are you going to learn from this and to have a more broad-based advocacy team helping you help the commission to do the right thing? And so I give you kind of that task to think about, what can you do as a board and as an organization to tap the talent? I can't believe there's not things that everybody could agree with. And so part of it is emphasis, and then the ongoing process for the commission. We need to be together. I must say that, quite frankly, the Alliance is showing us more proactive, responsive, hard work, a detailed analysis than we've gotten from the School Board Association. And they're all volunteers. So wouldn't it be nice if we could team up the Alliance's concerns and come up with something that's better? And doesn't mean everybody's going to be happy campers, but we're too small of a state to be having lobbyists here and lobbyists there. And we're trying to figure out what's best for our kids and how can we get the right decisions made. Thank you.
I think Bill, you bring some, you were going to ask.
Oh, no, if you're going to respond.
Go ahead.
I wanted to point out quickly that it's been a few minutes now, but you're making the same point that Jamie was making about Roxbury, right? State board made a bad call. And that's essentially what we're advocating against, is losing local control. So it's really hard to hear that and say, but you just said the same thing. So that's really frustrating. But moreover, I've been thinking about the Julius Caesar. We keep talking about that. I think what would make sense to me is for there to be a thumbs in the middle response. We're in support, but we're going to publicly say loudly that this is not perfect. Not in this meeting, but in the news. Speak to the reporters. I just shouldn't see on Facebook that everybody loves this. That would be the thumbs in the middle. I just wanted to say that.
So can I go or should
You
we
can
go
go.
today?
Go ahead,
Also,
then I'll get you,
recognize
Stacy.
that we don't want to take all of your meeting because you guys are busy too, and you guys bring a lot of good points, and we would try to come up with a process either, before our regional meetings. We always keep talking about how our reps can reach to to their regions better. I'm looking at all. I'd be lying to you if I told you that I have the solution right now for what you're saying. We're trying to do that with the board chair meetings, provides a really great opportunity for all of us to come together. We'll think about a process for that, how you make this decision. I'm not gonna try to justify myself right now that I just, that's, the process of Roxbury, I didn't agree with that. It's really close to me. I spend a lot of time talking to different people. I'm also a volunteer. I'm not a paid staff of Vermont Supervisory Association. I'm on the national board. I'm building bright futures. I really care about what's going on in Vermont. And everybody, exactly. So we are here, and the alliance, I don't see them as our enemies or somebody to vilify. We are here partners. They can carry a voice that we can't carry because we don't have agreement from that side of whether we want it or not. We did not have enough representation of those issues that you're not feeling represented right now. And I respect that. We are way more than advocacy, as we try to explain right now. And one big win for you guys, and you guys might not know everything, we spent all of, was it last Monday? It was not this Monday, it was the Monday before, anyway, Title VI was a huge win for you guys too. And for that was a resolution that came from national. We were at the national conference. If you had seen the amount of time, and that was Vermont Supervisory Association and Vermont Superintendents Association actually writing that letter. That was bringing together at 7:30 in the morning the 6 lawyers of Vermont with having the Attorney General, the Secretary. That's a huge turn. You were part of that because you were part of our association. So we are way more, and maybe there is a small percentage we're not agreeing right now, but we are more together, and we don't want to be the rest of the nation, right? Like that is part of the problem right now. We are all in our corners instead of trying to come to talk, and that, how you make your decision. You have an amazing chair. I wish you well tonight. We did the best we could. We are your partners. We respect what you do. We admire what you do, and we know that you guys are volunteers. I don't really have more words for tonight. So thank you for having us, and thank you for letting us speak with you and take so much time for us tonight.
And one more, Stacy had her hand up right
Sure,
before.
yes.
Stacy?
I'm sorry. I know everybody, I hate to be the one belaboring. I did want to follow up on Dave's point. I think that, we are your constituents, our residents, and our kids and our taxpayers are ours. So when the message that goes out to the media is just, we support this bill, it's better than the governor's plan. If we, as the conduit, as the people representing our taxpayers and our students, agree to sign on to that message, then we are doing them a deep disservice. So ultimately, I feel like you have to get better at messaging. If there's we reluctantly support this, here's where it still needs to be fixed. We need to be able to that needs to be conveyed. And I work in the media, so I know that they're not going to pick up all of your press releases, but you do have tremendous influence and power in Montpelier and with Vermont media, and that statement would be heard. So, I really appreciate that you came to the table. I still, to be honest, I don't feel great that it took 2 months of letter writing and an agenda item to withdraw our membership to get here. So I should hope that we can get better with our communication as well, if that's what we decide to do. But I would encourage you, I know a little bit about how politics works in Montpelier. I know that you're trying to dance a very fine line, but transparency to our communities is really the only way we're going to be able to actually get anything done together. So please take that and have a good evening, and try not to stay up all night writing testimony. Sorry we kept you all night.
I do want to say thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate that you listened to us. And
Thanks for listening.
I think you guys do a great job. But there are lots of things that we gain from the VSBA. So I don't want you to go away feeling like I don't think that you benefit us, because you do. I look to you all the time when I'm stuck or I need something. So I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having
Have a
us.
good evening.
Thank you. See you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, right?
Okay, not envy you having to now come up with. We're gonna close so that you guys can talk. I cannot hear my watch. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil and Jim.
All right, guys. So our next item on the agenda was, well, that was whether we want to withdraw from the VSBA or not. I'm feeling much more heard. I'm not sure I completely agree with everything they said. I do think that, aside from this one instance, they provide a lot of valuable stuff to us. And I think it's a rash decision for us to decide to jump off the ship just yet. I'm not saying that, you know, we go down the road a little more and we feel completely unheard still, then maybe we take that boat, but I'm not there yet. And I'm hoping that you guys are feeling the same as me, and I'm not out on an island. Stacy?
I would like to see what's said in the little bit of time period. Maybe say, okay, we're going to watch what's going on with them for a reasonable amount of time tomorrow and whatever we think is appropriate, and then revisiting this, because I know they listened, but I definitely did not like warm and fuzzy feel heard. I kind of felt more the we're doing the best I can, which I get, but I am a believer in not going the easiest path is not always the right path, right? So I'd like to shelf it and wait if we could.
Sana?
Yes. So I think, you know, again, I'm a new board member, and so my experience with them is not at the, you know, to the same extent as what you all know. But I think what struck me most deeply was that there wasn't a conciliatory tone. I think if they had fully acknowledged and taken accountability, and if from the get-go, I felt they were pretty defensive. And, you know, I totally understand and I agree they've worked very hard. They've done incredible work. But it almost felt like we're going to do the thing and ask for forgiveness later on without the forgiveness piece. It was, if they had, you know, been, you know, kind of practiced a little humility and said, hey, you know what, we totally hate that we didn't completely take you guys into account first. If we had heard that kind of language, I would have felt more assured that they're actually going to follow through and take the steps of the things that we've expressed. And, you know, then I would have felt more confident about, like, okay, all right, they may change tracks and they may be more thoughtful about how they include us in this process going forward. But a lot of the language I was hearing was like, well, okay, we see that you're upset, but if you don't stay with us, here are what the consequences are going to be. You're going to lose your voice. And I didn't really appreciate that because it didn't come from a respectful place. It came from, you know, it was essentially treating us like, well, you're acting out. We're not, and, you know, we hear you, but we also don't.
I'm going to put Gio under the bus here. He is the one who said that, and he's not a part of the VSBA or the School Boards Association or any of that anymore. But he used to be a member of our board. He's a member of our community, and he feels the importance of us being a part of the VSBA. So the people at the table didn't say, if you leave, it's going to be detrimental to you.
That Jim guy did.
Well, I mean, I think he's looking from his perspective as a board member, like he feels he needs them for a voice.
But
so
what I will say to that, though, is, like, you know, Gio's voice in the room, like, there was no one refuting what he was saying. They weren't saying, oh, actually, you know what, like, we get Gio's strength of feeling, but I think have I frozen?
Nope.
Oh, here I am. Okay. All right. I just wanted to express that, like, while Gio is a representative, at the same time, there was no one refuting what he was saying as such. You know, he kept kind of expressing the language of, okay, you know, I'm not representing the views of the board. However, none of them was saying, okay, you know, we appreciate Gio's strength of feeling, but, you know, you will still have, or whatever it was, there was still not a conciliatory tone. And so that struck me, because if I were in their position, I would be like, hey, you know, yeah, again, I'm talking in circles now. But, and then, you know, there was some defensive that came up. And there wasn't like, I'm not asking for people to begging on their knees to apologize, nothing like that. But it was more, there needed to be acknowledgement that, there were actions taken for us to have come to this point of withdrawing. It shouldn't have gotten to this point. Anyway, sorry, that's just.
No, thank you. Discussion matters. Sarah.
Well, Sana pretty much said what I wanted to say, but the point I wanted to make was they may have listened to us, but I'm not so sure. I didn't get the feeling we were heard. And I felt at one point I wanted to write bullshit in the message, and that's what I felt like I was hearing was just a line.
Which is why I think maybe we kick the decision down the road to see.
I would have no problem with that, and I would like to really see that tonight had an impact. And if it doesn't have an impact, then I'm not ready to make a vote tonight, and I don't even know if I have a vote on this board anyway. But if tonight doesn't have an impact, then I think then my vote would be that they're not representing us.
Dustin?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you guys said exactly. Totally agree. I feel like they listened to us, but I'm not sure if they heard us. And I think one of the big concerns, that I don't think is being addressed. They kept saying that it's all rural, and but it's not. We have the and this is going to affect, I think, Sana, you'd mentioned that earlier, and you're dead on. I mean, this is going to affect rural areas more than it's going to affect urban areas, and so, yeah, so it's just, so that's my concern. And they were, talking about how we could do certain things, and pretty much everything they were saying, we are doing it, but we're doing it, an uber amount, and I mean, we have our community involved, we are, and as far as getting communications about what's going on, I mean, I keep saying it, but I'm very proud of, our board's members and, our SU, the way that we have all worked together to keep each other on top of exactly what's going on. I mean, by the time VSBA sends us something, we've already heard about it, at least 24 hours earlier, so I'm not, I'm with you. My vote, I'll hold up. I want to see what they're going to do and see if tonight's discussion, impacts kind of the way they think, but the way they communicate, and the way they act. And I think that's a big piece that I just hope that that they heard also. I think it's also the way they interact with us, the responsiveness, or, it just, it can't go forward the way it has been going. And I'm not sure if they got that message. And I just had also a question to you, I guess, Jamie. Have we communicated with other boards? I'm sure we have, but we can't be the only, they're making it sound like we're a black sheep. And I don't feel that, the rest of the state cannot be, we can't be the only ones. So have you communicated with other SUs and gotten their sense on their handling?
So, I mean, Dust, I think the easiest answer for me is to say, I don't believe there'd be 96 boards and select boards that have joined the alliance if they didn't have concerns.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you.
Yeah, so I mean, I think I'm concerned because what I heard was that, they've been hearing from folks like us and from us, and they don't have the support on the VSBA to voice those concerns and opinions, right? So I don't know that it matters what they just heard from us tonight. That's what I heard from them was they need to hear that from the majority of their VSBA or the support throughout the state, or they're not going to be saying that publicly. So I feel like the alliance is is clearly aligned with our position on most of these key issues, and they're being very vocal about it. I don't know what the comparison is in terms of who's got better sway in Montpelier. I hate to even get into all the politics stuff, but that's what we're doing, I guess. So it's like,
Unfortunately, it's all about politics.
I hear what Gio was saying is like, they have all this influence, etc. But what's the point if they're not saying things that are representing what our constituents want to say? I guess was my thought.
Stacy?
Yeah, echoing that just a little because that's pretty close to what I was going to say. I also feel like let's not be rash. Let's like think on this and put off a vote and discuss it more at our next meeting. But I think with respect to what Jim was, the point that Jim was trying to make was that like you have to advocate for yourself sometimes because you're not always in agreement on this issue. We're all dead in the water if we cannot get some kind of movement. And so, I agree with Will. If they heard us and they're going to go and just advocate for supervisory districts and not do anything about class size minimums, or kind of skirt around the issue by saying it's an intent thing when we know where that goes from previous well-intentioned bad legislation, then we're dead in the, like, we might as well die on the cross on that one. So, in my opinion, VSBA does two really important things for us. One is administrative. It's superintendent evaluation. It's the model policies. It's the chair meetings. And that's all great. But I don't know if it's worth what we're paying in dues. Great. Like we could pay a lawyer or someone independently to do that work if we needed to. The big influence they have is influencing policy in Montpelier. And if they're not doing that for us, then that's just not where their value lies as far as I'm concerned. That's all.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thanks, Kathy.
Sana?
Just wanted to express one last concern, like with some of the language that I was hearing, it felt as though that they had already made a decision, and because we were not running with it, they were, again, not to dispute like all the work that they have done, because it's a lot harder to try and find a compromise or meet us where we are rather than run with the thing that feels like it's going to get them the thing that they want in the end. It feels like we're kind of these ruts in the road when they've got like a path in their trajectory. And my other concern is that if they continue to express it like, oh yeah, like the different, the different, the supervisory board and so like are in agreement with us, and that's popping up in the media, that we're going to be hearing from constituents and from the people that we represent and the voices that we represent that, hey, wait a minute, why are you agreeing to this when we are opposed to it and we've expressed that? And so, that's also a concern that we are being misrepresented in a way that also signals to other school districts that we're in agreement when we're not, when they may be in the same position as us.
And the one thing I would say is we need to wake up our communities, because I feel like Chelsea and Tunbridge is like kind of starting to engage and get interested in mentioning a little bit, but I feel like we're knee deep in it and our communities are not as knee deep, and they are going to be who Montpelier needs to hear from at the end of the day. Like they need to see that this is not supported. I don't have a single person that I've talked to that thinks this is a great idea by any means in our area.
I agree with all the folks who said, let's give them a little time, not a whole lot of time, but a little time to see whether they actually do anything. Correct. Thank you. Do anything in terms of, first of all, specificity about what they're asking to change, what they're asking to modify. Because in all my years of bargaining contracts, if you're not specific, the final version basically favors whoever the organization with the most power is. And I think we have to really be careful about that. I also, in terms of looking at data, I just remember reading through the first version of the bill, which was very speculative. And the data provided in it was pretty much data from this outside firm that crunched data for various states in order to get a particular set of recommendations. And I think we have to really be careful about, okay, if they come up with data, whose data is it? Where did the data come from? Was it independent data? as opposed to data coming from
Actual data.
yeah, someone that you hire to say, okay, you did this in Michigan, you did this in Mississippi, or wherever else they did it. And now we're going to do it for you here. Because, you know, data is political too. Like there's no innocent knowledge that just falls out of a tree. And I think we should be really careful about calling them to account on that if and when they do actually decide to demand data before they make a positive decision.
Eric. You're muted, dear.
I have a comment and a question. The comment is first, my apology for playing with my slinky, which led to my being muted, and I will stop doing that. I am very sorry. The question, slinkies are important. The question is a procedural question, and it's a procedural question based on the fact that we have an agenda item that talks about possible action for withdrawal from VSBA membership. And I want to make sure, I want to make sure that we start talking about what it is that we are voting on, if we're going to vote on something in terms of whether or not we're taking any action today. And that's sort of what the question I have is can we get to, is there a motion or a statement on the floor for us to vote on? Oopsie, wrong one.
Are we ready for a motion? Because I would like to move that we table this.
I was just going to suggest that we can motion to table it.
Reconsider next meeting, maybe.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to table. Any discussion? Eric. Play your slinky again.
I'm not going to play with my slinky. I'm sorry. The question that the consideration that I would hope that the body would entertain in terms of the tabling of a motion is that tablings of motions don't typically result in a automatic comeback of that issue to the body. A tabling of an issue is just, we're not going to consider her again. And what I would suggest is rather than a tabling of the motion is a postponement of the issue for 1 month.
I amend my motion to postpone for 1 month the decision.
You second her.
Maybe or at a time agreed to by the board. Like if it's in 2 weeks and we decide we want to vote on it.
Or a month or sooner.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. I amend my motion to table this, to postpone the vote to a month or less.
Second. So moved and second. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Are there any nays? All right. So motion passed. We will revisit this next month, if not sooner.
Thanks for coming, Gio.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
8.1. Let me just go back.
Okay. 8.1, I skipped 8.1. We're going back. Legislative updates with specific focus on H454 school transformation bill.
So I put out a letter that tried to provide some clarity for our constituents last week.
Yes,
I hope that could be a useful tool for you. I'll try to provide some updates once we start to see what the Senate's going to do. It does appear that they're going to work from H454. That doesn't mean they won't have a lot of strike-throughs, but it does look like they're going to work from that bill, because what they requested this morning is testimony from the VSBA, VPA, VSA, and the NEA is what concerns in the Alliance, what concerns folks may have specific to H454. And then they wrote to me. So I feel quite flattered. I was the only superintendent included on that email from Senate Ed. So I'm going to definitely testify in support of with the Alliance, okay, in regards to opposing class sizes, and the arbitrary like school number size of that 450, right? Which they say is in there, essentially as like something that we would aspire to. I just think that we should just get rid of that. So that's going to be my focus testimony for tomorrow. Okay. That aligns directly with the Alliance. I cannot help myself to not also say my concern around not including the supervisory union. All right. The Alliance is not planning to go there tomorrow. I plan to, in my oral testimony, speak to that. And so I just wanted you to know as a board that where I was at in regards to where my testimony will go tomorrow. So it's going to focus on that 450 number, the class sizes, and supervisory unions be included.
So after the testimony and stuff tomorrow, just because I don't know how all the legislators work, what happens with where are we at then after they take testimony and?
Oh, they're going to work on this thing for weeks, just like the House did.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then they'll come up with something that they're going to vote on.
They'll have to vote it out of committee, and then it'll go to the Senate floor, just like
we did with the House.
There's a specific thing that I want to just make sure the board's really aware with. If you listen to any of the testimony that happened on the House floor, or if you listen in regards to House Ways and Means, their foundation formula and the weights provided within that foundation formula cannot be acted upon, I think they believe, without also the governance structure change, which needs districts. Okay, because the borders of districts results in larger districts that those students are members of. You may say, Jamie, why do they need that? Because if you start to look at the map in regards to how those weights will play out, there are many larger districts that tend to be wealthier that are going to lose significant revenue in regards to those weights. And so I believe part of the idea around these larger districts is that when they look to redistrict these maps, they're going to place some more rural or higher poverty districts with more wealthier or more urban possibly districts. And that's why they're looking at that they need to wait on implementing the weights, the foundation formula and the weights in the same time as when these new larger districts take hold. I want to say that to all you to just so that you're aware and eyes are wide open. That is another piece of this legislation that I certainly have major concern with. It's certainly something that the Alliance is aware of and certainly will testify in opposition around concern in the upcoming weeks. So, I would just say to you that we need to see what the Senate does and then reach out to our constituents and let them know where they're at. I'm holding some coffee and conversations in the Rochester Stockbridge district that we're also going to invite Granville Hancock to, Stacy, in the upcoming week because I'm preparing for budget votes there in those districts, but I also know people have questions about the legislative conversation. I'm going to try to make it a point to at least get visible with our constituents on holding these. I also think that as a board, you ought to think about holding some type of community conversation that can allow folks to come as the Senate starts to work on this bill. And so I would hold off maybe for a little bit just to have the Senate do some work so we can update them where the Senate is. Because right now what we have is the House bill. They haven't done anything yet with it. But I'm just curious to folks' thoughts around that because I do think we should start to plan that out as we look ahead here for the coming month.
Jamie, I just was wondering if you had a suggestion, because I know Sarah has been tirelessly reaching out to our local Senator, Larry Hart. I've reached out to him on a personal basis, my partner has, and he has been non-responsive or minimally responsive to our concerns about what is happening. Do you have any suggestions on other ways that we can approach that? Or, how we can get like a more helpful response or get more engagement around this?
I would tell you that it appears to me that in general, that the Republican caucus is very in alignment in regards to the governor's plan. There was a step out in regards to 7 Republicans supporting H454, but I've heard folks say like that, you know, this plan doesn't, you know, necessarily have partisan politics in it, but like the Republicans are appearing to be very in alignment with the governor. And so my sense is that that Mr. Hart's just not commenting on it right now. Like he's not. I mean, he's gonna say the governor's plan is the right plan. I mean, I don't have any other evidence to the contrary.
I mean, I figured that was likely the case, and that was why he wasn't commenting, or he more or less had expressed that, like, if you don't want the changes to happen, they won't happen. And then that's the extent of his response to me. So, yeah, sounds like we might have to engage with the community about kind of putting some pressure there.
Yeah, I would absolutely advise that that's what we should be doing.
Jamie, one thing that nobody seems to be talking about, I mean, I could be off the wall, but the Act of 454 repeals the income sensitivity, the property credit program that allows people that earn up to $127,000 to pay their by their income rather than the value of their property. And that's to level the playing field so that we can have affordability in all our school programs, particularly in our rural schools. And so I think it'd be very important for the Senate and the legislature before they pass something to have an analysis of what they're proposing. Right now, it's $15,033 per K through 12 student uniform, but with no income sensitivity program. Who are the winners and losers there? Because I would think the income sensitivity are helping those people with the most need, the lowest incomes. And if they do away with that, how are their savings going to trickle down to make sure that they are equally financially benefit? And it's very complicated and people go, blah, 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 blah. But I think they need to know that because there's a real difference how much people pay based on their income versus the property values. And the Senate should know that and ask the legal beagles and the finance people to do that analysis with whatever it is. And let's see. The public should know that.
And I'm happy to convey that as a concern to the Alliance. I have, Bill. But I think that they will testify that in the finance. I've been more within the Alliance. My focus has not been on the financial aspects. It's been on
I totally understand.
So what I would say to the boards is like, we just have to keep trying to educate folks in regards to pointing them to the facts, because there's also a lot of misinformation out there, right? No schools closing down next year. So I just want to make certain we can correct that on the record. Within H454, that nothing changes in regards to the financial side until they address the governance structure piece. Just in case you're having constituents ask you these questions, I just wanted you to have some of those facts. I know that Sarah Stratford has an upcoming meeting, not next week, but the week after. If that could be a real time we emphasize trying to get the public out in Stratford. I think that we can do the same thing in First Branch that night at that board meeting to get the public out, let them know it's going to be on the agenda. And we certainly can offer some coffee times and definitely get them on the agenda and Sharon upcoming too. I want boards to know, like, I think we should work together around this. I think there's going to be a time when we're going to possibly need to call to action. And I want us to continue to be at this point right now where we're educating our communities. I don't see the call to action right now is too soon. If we really get a call to action to get out the no vote.
But it's too soon for the call of action, but it's not too soon to start organizing and getting ready for it.
No, I would agree with that.
Right.
Okay.
Jamie, can I know I'm also desperate to go, but I have one final question, which is I worry about this board organizing so that we can organize our communities while not working against open meeting law. So, you know, I feel like it's important for this board to continue open lines of communication, and I always start and then back off because I don't want to violate.
You can plan a board meeting and you're not in a violation of open meeting law.
Right. But what I'm saying is, I guess, like, I don't want to plan a 10-minute organizing meeting, although maybe that's what it's going to take. Yeah, never mind. I'm getting delirious.
Eric?
And in response to Stacy, I would suggest that I actually think we ought to do this in public session. That this organizing ought to be transparent to our constituency and ought to be transparent to our legislators as they understand how it is that we need to organize in order to get them to slow the heck down.
Thank you, Eric.
Well,
you can count on you.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe this is what Stacy was getting at, but it might be nice to, if we were going to do these, to kind of somehow work together for materials or like, you know, like talking points. And because I mean, I don't know about you guys, but like, you know, if we get 50 people show up, like, I don't know, it's a little nerve wracking to answer all those questions, right? Without having some data in front of me.
Well, even something as simple as writing a community action to post to your front porch forum, like, we don't all have to do that individually because we're all sending a similar message with just different details or different legislature information.
You're more than welcome to say, here's a document.
Yeah.
And one board member could write back to you, Stacy, and say, hey, thanks for this. Here's my thoughts around that. That's not going to be a violation of open meeting law. It's when you copy a quorum of the board and then you start engaging in these.
Oh yeah, I know. I guess I'm thinking ahead in terms of like what that actually looks like. And I think Eric is right that it does involve some more meetings where we're sending out agendas and copying everybody. And then I think it also just includes other informal something.
All right, guys, Dustin, and then we're gonna get into
Do it, Kathy. I appreciate you.
Definitely. Yeah. Push me. Yeah. And no, I appreciate all this. And I think this is kind of such a big deal that, you know, I think this is going to definitely take unique communication processes, processes. And I can't believe I'm even going to suggest this, because even just having one meeting a month is, or 2 meetings a month is a little rough, but maybe we could, because of this, during the process of this, have kind of we have it at Hitchcock, to have people understand the tools and stuff. We have kind of a dedicated time each week, that is open. And so, we have people available and people can come and, ask questions. Maybe we could set something like that up on a, bi-weekly basis, just putting it out there, but I'd be happy to be shot down.
I think it's something that our board members could take on and do and not make Jamie be a part of everyone.
Oh, no, right. Yeah, I'm just talking about board members.
I like all your input, but I know you have enough on your plate but we could take some of that. And I do think that would be, if we could figure out how to do that, would be valuable to get more community involvement and community engagement, because things are changing so fast that I tell them one thing one day, and by the time I see that person again, it's completely different information. All right, so you good for 454? So we decided we're not withdrawing from the VSBA contribution for the Rural School Community Alliance. Since we didn't withdraw from VSBA, is that we're leaving that for future agenda? Is that what I'm thinking we need to do? Finalize details for wagon wheel meetings in June and August.
What is a wagon wheel meeting?
Okay,
For the new
so for those who don't know what a wagon wheel meeting is,
We would meet probably south of the Royalton campus because they're in the middle
To start with.
And all of the boards would have their board meeting there. So first branch, we would each have our own individual board meeting there, and Jamie and the people that are needed for those meetings would visit each of those meetings and get our business done. And then we'd all come together as one full board meeting to do. We have board education that we want to do, things like that are going to come up. So do we want to just keep it on the same days as our regular full board meetings for those months? And
I think that's problematic in June because it's really late.
okay.
So I had a recommendation. If you wanted to pursue this, I was going to suggest that we would look at June 10th, which is an open slot, meaning that there's no other meetings scheduled. And that we would do it June 10th. That the idea would be that we'd like start an SU meeting around 5:30 and try to keep it as tight as we could around the agenda. That we would also have food provided, right? So let's say the SU meeting goes from 5:30 till like 6:45, right? You grab your food and you're starting your SU meeting, or 5:30 to 6:45, you're grabbing your food and you're starting your board meeting between 6:45 and 7. I haven't worked on the agendas yet, but the district meetings would be really focused on what the district business needs to be in the principal's report. You would have all already received Tara's report, my report, the policy report. Like that all could be done at the SU meeting.
Right, and then we just break up into our individual
And then you
stuff.
break up off into your individual boards, and that would really be focused in June around your principal's report and any board business specific to your board. Like legislative updates we could do during the SU meeting, right? And in June, you need to take action on your TAN, and that's where we'll need to spread out as an SU team to just support you around those motions to take action on the TAN. My sense is, I mean, by doing this, at least it gives us the opportunity if we need more emergency or special meetings to address H454, because in June is when we're going to actually need to be really engaged and ramping up on this. It provides us more opportunity to do so. So I don't think it's going to necessarily cut you down from 2 meetings that month, but I think it would allow us the ability and space to, if we need to call a meeting, we can.
Okay. Does June 10th work for people? Can I kind of get a thumbs up that we could make that work?
June 10th.
June 10th? And can everybody, look at that, we weren't, no, Stacy, you're not a sideways. You're a sideways?
7 sideways, 8 positive.
I do have some time. I was going to be taking my kids on vacation, but I have to double check it.
Okay.
How about Peggy while we got her on, and Bill? It'd just be good to know.
Peggy, Bill, can you guys make June 10th? And you wouldn't have, so we wouldn't have our normal first branch meeting and you wouldn't have your normal RUD meeting. That's iffy.
You know what,
So-
Kathy? I would be able to make June 10th.
You would?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it should work for me.
All right, Peggy says she can make it. So Bill, you can let me know in an email. As long as we can get a quorum, that would be great. You guys good here?
Awesome.
Oh, good. Okay, so June 10th looks,
Let's plan on it, and we'll
All right.
get the word out. We'll get emails out to
and on June
everybody.
10th, do we want to plan what August looks like from there?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
We'll plan that then. Okay.
Is there any consideration for beyond August? I mean, it just seems, if it works for June and August, seems like a great plan for making life a whole lot easier for Jamie and the rest of the staff. I mean, I'd be willing to go up to Chelsea once a year to
go with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it just seems like this is such a good idea, and go over to Rochester once.
We used to like, we rotated our full board meetings at each school district every time. We didn't make it a wagon wheel, but we did rotate and go to, each month we went to a different school. So maybe I am open to, Jamie's open to that. If we could make that work, I think if we could.
But it just seems like June and August would be a really good
test of
this. And if it works, I would love to see that happen, because I hate the fact that you guys have to come to every single meeting.
Sarah?
Well, when we were at the retreat and came up with this, one of the reasons why we picked July, June and August was because those are not necessarily, because once we get into the year, we have budget, we have things that are more, deeper, more full meetings where we can't really share Jamie or Anda. We need to have them there at our meeting for the whole time. So I don't think it works.
I would say
year-round
that, but I would say that Jamie comes to my meeting and a lot of our meeting is spent on stuff that has been covered at this meeting. So I think we could maybe make a compromise with some of our meetings.
Yeah, even if we didn't do it every meeting, if there were
Yeah.
months where we could do it.
Let's see how June goes and then we'll
You guys don't object to that.
We don't do nearly as much as
but
us.
I do think we could make it more efficient for our supervisory union staff.
I'm not driving to Rochester. Just so
Come
you know.
on, get over here.
Look,
Sarah.
but Sarah, you don't have to drive to Rochester. You're here. I mean, you're here virtually, so there's ways we can make the technology, we can make things work.
I will
We'll,
with you.
we're gonna table that until after June.
I suppose the Orca piece would be the hard part because could Orca go to all of the separate meetings in the building? How many people do you have that?
It's a project that,
It'd be good for them.
yeah.
We'll make it work. All right. So we are on to public comment. Is there any public comment now? Eric?
Now, before we go to public comment, I sort of missed, and I don't want to go back, but I want to make sure that I didn't miss it inappropriately. So I get that we're not voting on the notion of withdrawing from the VSBA membership today. Why are we not moving on the contribution to the Rural School Community Alliance?
Well, the way I was understanding what we were doing is our money that was going to the VSBA was going to go to the Rural School Alliance. I don't know that if we have more
Could
money.
possibly have been the way you did it.
Okay. I don't know if we have more money that we could support.
As a board, you have funds. I mean, you have dues and fees. I mean,
And so there's money in the budget?
There's well, yes, I think the SU budget could support it.
Okay. So we can vote to do that if we want to, Eric. I was thinking one was a trade-off with the other, but
Yeah, I didn't understand it necessarily that way, and I because I wasn't sure whether there was a request from the Alliance for funds at this particular point in time.
They've got a request of all their member.
So do we want to go back and take a vote on that?
Well, I would like to know what the request is before I start.
They
voting
didn't
on-
set an amount.
I can
They
read
did
you
not
what
set
they said.
What do you think, Jamie?
I can read you what they said.
Okay.
They say, we are writing because we need help with the cost of these ongoing efforts. We encourage school boards and supervisory union boards to add items to their agendas about making a contribution to the Alliance. We are suggesting a contribution of between $500 and $1,500 for smaller boards and $2 per student for larger boards.
I missed that.
Per student?
$2 per student for larger boards. And I don't think that they really differentiate. I don't know what that means to them.
And I'm sorry, what would these funds be? You may have already said that. I'm sorry. What would these funds be used for?
It's for their lobbyist. So they have someone working in Montpelier.
All right. Good call.
Well, I would make a motion that we support the Rural Alliance with $1,000. And you guys can amend me, but I think that's somewhere in the middle of what they're looking for, and I appreciate what they're doing. So,
I second it.
all right. So moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
Just a point of clarification, and this money would come from the SU. Rather than
Yeah, that's what I
nickel
think we should
timing
do.
around the district boards.
Yep.
So I just got to get a quick question. This is my earlier question about, like if Jamie, if you'd chatted with, some other supervisory unions or whatnot. And, but did you say that there's 96 districts signed up with the Alliance?
96 school
So that we
boards,
only have 119 in Vermont.
school boards and select boards.
Select boards are signing up too. So school boards and select boards.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, like, how are we not having a voice?
Yeah.
So, okay, I see.
How many towns is it though? It's got to be more than half of that.
I don't have it off the top of my head.
Yeah, I was trying to find it. I don't see it on their website. But
All right, so we have.
And there's also the difference between, districts and supervisory unions, right? So there's lots of, that number is likely of districts, not necessarily how many supervisory unions are a part of the alliance.
All right, guys, so we have a motion and a second. We've had our discussion. Are we ready for a vote?
Yes.
Yes.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Are there any nays? All right, hearing none, we have agreed to support the alliance with $1,000 from Warrior Valley Supervisory.
Thank you, and thank you for clarifying that
Thank you.
the whole
Bringing us back.
mishmash. Yeah.
All right, and so there was no public on that I saw now. So we don't have public comment. Our next meeting is Tuesday, May 27th. And other than that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.